Welcome back to another replay cast here on the Alpha X YouTube page. My name is Rushi, and this is a quarterfinals replay cast from the season finals of DreamHack Fall. Spawning in the bottom left of Blackburn LE. It's our blue Zerg player for Dragon Phoenix Gaming. This is Dark. And his opponent in the bottom right, our red Protoss player playing for the Afrika Freaks. This is Trap. Boy, howdy. Good replay cast underway here. A best of 5 between these two Zerg and the Protoss players. Both very strong staples in the Korean StarCraft scene. Of course, Dark and Trap been around quite some time in this community, and it's surprising, actually, a little bit to see that these two players haven't played it against each other as much as we might have otherwise anticipated. Did a little bit of deep diving for this cast, and really, in the last, 5 or so years, not that many. I think 33 matches here. Bit of an interesting situation, though, statistics-wise. Dark behind Trap in games and matches won. So, bit of a nemesis here for the blue Zerg player. However, most recently, both of the last 2 matchups before this series, Dark comes out the victor. Of course, it was Dark versus Trap in the GSL 2021 Season 2 Codes Final, where Dark won 4-1. And in the World Team League summer regular season, those two met up, and Dark 2-0 over Trap. So a little bit of maybe discrepancy on whether or not, it's a team league match. Can't necessarily say that they're going to bring their absolute best games in those series. I would disagree. I think Wardy and all of the wonderful people that help out with the World Team League would have something different to say. But in any case, the Code S finals, hard to argue that those two players wouldn't be bringing their absolute best to that event. So Trap possibly looking for a little bit of revenge here from a couple of months ago, and Dark looking to try and close the win gap between these two players. So we are here on Blackburn here around about the 3-minute mark, and it is going to be a Stargate opener between these two players. We are still seeing in this same map pool and meta a very similar opening from Protoss players in the PvZ matchup, and a lot of the time it just revolves around Void Rays. And it is going to be that case here in game number 1 of this best of 5. Now, Dark will be able to get a decent scout off on this, keeping that Overlord handy. In fact, Dark going to try and dive into the main base just a little bit. This is something we're seeing more and more happening here. A lot of times the Overlord will get perched up in different locations to try and last a little bit longer. On Blackburn, though, there's really not even a good place to post up, and even still, the Void Ray will be able to find them anyways, so trying to take that Overlord in to get a little bit of extra information before it does inevitably perish, worth it in the end, since it's going to go anyways. So Trap does get to operate with the knowledge that it is going to be a Void Ray opening. The question then becomes how many Void Rays will be back behind it. Right now, it's only going to be 1, and Oracle is the follow-up in the second place position of that Stargate. But it does appear to be that we're not getting any additional Stargate production here. Despite that, Spore Crawlers going down into the main and natural mineral lines. Queens are going to be able to protect out at the 3rd base location all by themselves, so not a major concern. Now we finally are getting a little bit of the magic here. Second Stargate goes down in the main base alongside +1 air weapons. So Trap going to commit here. It was a couple of different forking paths after the initial couple of units there. We could easily have seen Trap go into a follow-up of Twilight Council into Forge, and then just transition into a pretty standard ground army. Maybe even try and take a sneaky upgrade path to try and overwhelm Dark Or exactly what we're seeing right here. Get the follow-up additional Stargate that's going to allow for double the Void Ray production. And +1 on those Voids makes it very, very difficult for the Zerg player if he's not completely aware of what's happening here. But right now, Dark getting exactly what he needs to try and respond to this. He is going to throw down additional Queens. We are getting a lair in the main base. And the 4th base coming down here at the gold expansion. This actually ends up working out really well for Dark if he wants to continue doubling down on the gold production, or the queen production rather. Roaches still coming down at a pretty respectable time. You can't afford to not make roaches, unfortunately. Even if you do get a really good scout off on the voids, it's just too important to make sure that you don't accidentally die to 10 to 15 zealots on the ground. And even then, the roaches are going to just like stem that tide. They're not going to handle it entirely. So we're up to 4 voids right now. We do have an oracle that's still circling around. 3 kills on that oracle right now. Not an insignificant number here. Lair is going to finish up. What's going to be the follow-up here? More than likely Glue Reconstitution. These voids are going to start working away on this gold hatchery base. And this is going to be difficult to try and protect here. I mean, he's going to have to cancel that, and exactly he does. Dark does restart it almost immediately, but the transfuse energy on these queens, very, very low. 1 queen going to come in from the backside and try and wrap things up. But look at this, a fleet beacon and a 3rd Stargate going to go down here as a follow-up. Dark's had a pretty good look here at that 3rd base location. He knows that it's there. He doesn't necessarily know the entirety of the saturation, but you can make some pretty safe assumptions at this point. However, Dark wants to try and solve that pesky little economy problem of his opponent. He's got some banelings that are going to try and roll on in. Actually, they're going to just waddle at this point, but a great position here by this Void Ray. Should eliminate most of that damage. 2 will be able to get in here. That's going to be enough to kill. 6 do end up going down off the cuff. Very, very good stuff. So Dark's going to get a little bit of response here, and he does happen upon the 4th base here. A Nidus network. Exactly what's going to need to be coming up here. Flux veins being researched, but it's also carrier production that has begun here. This is basically the end game accelerated. We're only at the 7-minute, 20-second mark, but we're starting to see unit production that mirrors like the 10 to 15-minute mark of most of these ZVPs. Well, this is proving to be a bit of a complicating matter here for Dark. I mean, he's gonna have his Nidus, but he's got no vision. Like, look, it is just dark on the map over here. No pun intended. So this 4th base is going to be secured, at least for right now. Creep will push out to the top side, but Trap's just biding time. This is just going to be a very, very slow timing attack here. Oh, okay. So Trap's going to be able to position here on the south side of the map. He is going to produce still 3 Stargate carriers at a time. But Flux Veins finishing up here. Where are we at on the upgrades? It's just +1, no +2 on the way. But +1 should be more than enough here. Dark's now finally going to see these carriers coming, and now it's immediately Mayday, Mayday. Where are the queens? Okay, the queens aren't so far away. But the queens are going to end up waddling in almost 1 at a time. There's going to be plenty of interceptors here. Without Hydras, this is going to be a difficult defense as well. Trap should be able to just jump right on top of this. Oh, man, the queens have transfuse energy. The transfuses are pretty good right now, but they are limited in their amount immediately right now. The queen numbers are thinning. The herd is being taken care of. Suddenly, the Knitting Club is only a couple of members. And despite 21 probes going down on the opposite side of the map, Trap able to secure a Game 1 victory. And we move on to map number 2. Map number 2 brings us to Oxide as Trap secures his 1-0 advantage in this best of 5. Of course, it's a long series, so a lot of opportunities for players to mix things up and try and throw their opponent a wrench in their playstyle. And it seems like Trap is definitely bringing that kind of energy into this series, getting that second block at this point. I mean, every little bit makes a huge difference. We've seen Trap take a bunch of different positions, if you will, in PvZ, where I feel as if Trap leans away from the overall air end game. Not saying that Trap isn't, like, good enough for it, or it's like, oh, this is the peasant's strategy, but we've seen a lot of Trap playing just standard death ball ground Protoss, getting Archons, Immortals, Zealots, Colossi, even Disruptors. I say even Disruptors, like, we never see Disruptors in the PvZ meta. What's going on? But I feel like the amount of times that Trap goes for a all-air endgame is not as high as it could be. Not as high as his Protoss counterparts. However, in game number 2, does appear to be that we are going to get a little bit more air toss, sky toss from Trap here. One of our GSL champions. I guess they both are, aren't they? A lot of championship status in this particular series here. That's why these season finals are always so entertaining to watch and to see unfold. Got to give ESL a huge shout out, given every limitation that the pandemic brought to esports in 2020 and 2021. Very, very awesome job bringing a lot of the prestige and excitement of global StarCraft, true global StarCraft, not GSL, but like StarCraft players across the world, and hyping up great fun events that keep on delivering time after time again. So big shout out to them. I know myself included, probably lots of people watching this video as well, very excited to see us return to in-person events. In person! Very excited. All right, so Void Ray opening once again here. It is a similar follow-up here for Trap, but here's that diverging fork here that I talked about in game number 1. Now, instead of going for a pure air-based opening into air late game, now we do see the Twilight Council coming down. So we will have more of a ground presence here. Still a bit to determine what's going to end up being the focus, if it's going to be Adepts, if it's going to be Stalkers. It does appear that we might get a little bit more Adept action than the alternative, but Adepts still very, very good for defending and for making really good offense. But this secures the idea here. We are going to go into Resonating Glaives, so it will be actually a pretty nice timing. We've seen a lot of this as well. Not a trap necessarily, but in general, taking the Resonating Glaives timing that was popular about a year and a half ago, and modifying it. Still starting with that Stargate opener to eliminate the amount of scouting that comes out here from the Zerg player, but then still getting a bit of the surprise on the backside of, oh, okay, you're going to find ways to try and deal with my Void Ray and my Oracle harassment? Well, cool. I'm going to wrap it in behind with about 10 Adepts that can just shade back and forth in your face. Now, Dark, not going to be a stranger to this type of build. This is going to be at least prepared for. He does have a Roach Warren, +1 missile attack is on the way. Here come the Adepts, though. How many Adepts do we have at this point? We have 11. Okay, fair enough. Fair amount here. Voider's going to go and try and pull a little bit of attention here in the main base, but the shading is now going to begin. Where this is going to change a little bit, though, is that there is no forward aggression with these Adepts. There's no Warp Prism. That's the biggest difference here in this timing attack. So what we see is what we get, and we can already see the follow-up here of those Stargates. In fact, this is just going to get recalled back home. I mean, Dark gets a great hold here. And this is a really, really nice position here. Only loses 12 Zerglings and takes out 4 Adepts for the cost. I mean, that's outstanding. So we do see a very, very quick transition back into 3 Stargates. Trap realizing, wait a minute, I could just like build air units. Why wouldn't I do that? +1 air weapons also finishing up, but Dark's going to be a bit more prepared this time around. Hydra Den already done and grooved spines on the way. But Trap, recalling a good majority of his adepts, is actually going to be able to continue harassing with this as well. So he's going to be able to buy himself plenty of time as the Forge goes down. The Fleet Beacon is back once again. Trap, who has polluted your mind to the ways of the Sky Toss? Ooh, I like this here. Oracle going to try and place down a Stasis Ward. That actually gets quickly handled here by Dark. Much better response here in game number 2 by the Korean Zerg player. But the response needs to be a little bit stronger than even that here. The third base is already fully saturated. There really is no potential for major aggression across the map, despite the fact that Dark is up 145 to 113. He's got a sizable army. The question is whether or not he's going to be able to actually do anything with it. The shield battery here is going to go down in the natural. Groove Spine's going to be finishing up here in just a moment, but I don't know if Dark's going to want to move out until the improved or muscular augments upgrade, Hydra speed, if you will, is completed. A second Fleet Beacon? Or did the first one get canceled? The first one must have been canceled. Okay. It's a bit strange. I think Dark must have scouted it, but Trap canceled it to try and make his opponent think different things. One of those Void Rays wandered into the wrong neighborhood, unfortunately. Okay, this is actually starting to look really good for Dark right now. 173 to 122. What does he have back at home? There are shield batteries, so of course this is going to be a very, very good hold here for the Protoss player. No, that fourth base is going to get canceled, unfortunately. Okay, Void Rays do get brought back here to the fight, but this is not an easy hold here for Trap. Dark's going to be able to shut down that fourth base, so this is going to get canceled inevitably. But a lot of it is kind of buying time for these muscular augments. So this works out great for Trap, who has been able to warp in a few extra units. +1 is just about done. So even being able to get his handle on extra damage from his ground units, that's going to put him in a much better position. But look at this. We've already got a rotation into some robotics facility production here. It is going to be disruptors, and against this kind of army, this is going to be very, very strong here. Stasis Ward going to go down on the left-hand side. Might draw a little bit of protection, but not a whole lot, as Dark is just going to stutter step here to the right-hand side. This is just all sorts of, I mean, this is chaotic damage here. Dark is slowly starting to work his way in. The Void Rays are still sizable in number. There are 4. The Hydras are going to start to go down here as well. Reinforcements coming in from the left-hand side. Trap is making a really good hold here. This ended up going very, very well in the Korean Protoss's favor. He's able to push everything back, and even on the battle report here, this looks outstanding. He loses 5 probes, but for that entire push, that hold is insanely worth it here. He's now going to be able to reclaim this fourth base. The additional disruptors are going to be a wonderful addition here to this position. Trap can at any point switch his production over to carriers, and he's going to have the disruptors underneath of it to be able to secure it into place. We do have flux veins, so the Fleet Beacon has already paid for itself. The flank from the left-hand side, absolutely a crucial hold, as Trap is now going to be able to go punish on the opposite side of the map. There is almost nothing back in this main base. There's no queen. There's no nothing. Have Brenda and the Knitting Gang been pulled? No. It's just going to be another Roche Hydra army. Fourth base is going to get clobbered once again, but not before the Hydras pushing the natural get clobbered themselves. There's finally the Queens going back to defend against the now lone Void Ray. There's a lot of motion here. Ooh, not a lot of coverage on these disruptors. Great shield battery overcharge keeps those alive for the time being. But Dark was hoping to find way more damage than this position would have allowed for. And yeah, immediately Trap able to stabilize here and will begin his carrier production. Okay, so Dark wants to try and make the transition as well. As long as he can hold that 4th base down, I think Dark's going to be in a really good spot here in this game number 2. Definitely dealing much, much better than he did in game number 1. He's going to get that Hive transition, more than likely going to put us in the path of Lurkers. And with the growing Hydra count, this continues to look really, really strong. Oh, Disruptors, though, going to get some really good shots off. But if carriers have they been seen yet by Dark? Maybe he's gotten something up in here. No, not quite. Not a whole lot of information for the blue Zerg player at this point. +2 Carapace, though. I mean, this is an indicator. You don't pick up Carapace unless you think your opponent is going to be massing air, because that's when that Carapace upgrade is going to benefit. Otherwise, almost all of the ground units of the Protoss player hit slow. They hit hard. Those attack upgrades are going to be much, much more advantageous to you, both melee and missile. Okay. Yeah, now we do finally have that Lurker Den upgrading here. We will get those adaptive talents. And Vipers as well. Going to be working on into this mix. I mean, Dark on paper looks great. 194 to 155. He has a sizable army advantage. He has the economic advantage for sure. His 5th base is about to finish up. He's been denying the 4th base of his opponent, but now he has to find a way to capitalize on this, and that disruptor count is so intimidating. Great splits, though, here so far, but the Lurkers are not available right now. The Lurkers are a necessity in this defense, and staying on creep is going to be really important as well. Those Roaches are going to try and leap forward here. The Roaches don't have as much utility as the Hydras do, so if the Roaches get pushed forward to try and clean up a couple extra ground units before they inevitably fall to Interceptors, so be it. That's going to be the best way to try and trade out that supply at this point. But right now, Dark is having to dodge all of these disruptor shots. It's taking up so much of his APM and his multitasking here to try and keep this Hydra army alive. One disruptor shot completely tears apart this army in its entirety. +3 missile on the way now. I mean, +2 Carapace puts in a really, really good spot, especially against +1 air weapons. That's what I was talking about. All of those Hydras just tear apart, and suddenly, in a blink of an eye, great Viper Pulls here, but the Viper Pulls go down onto the Disruptors. Possibly what was hoping to be happened here, but I can't help but feel like the carriers might be a better target. Good recall goes down onto the forward Disruptors, but a couple are going to get left behind in the end. A great run by of Zealots here, cleaning up that 4th base location. 11 workers do end up going down, but now the Interceptor count very, very low here. There's nothing really to stop these Zerglings that are on the ground, and without unit support, these Disruptors are going to be so very vulnerable. They do get a couple of shots off onto these Hydras. The Hydras still splitting insanely well, but Archons will be able to drive the Lings and Hydras away, as they will just absolutely obliterate this ground army. And what looked to be a very, very dire moment for Dark now becomes an opportunity for Dark to get things set back up. He does have to replenish this 4th base location, which is an understood loss, but being able to eliminate so many of those carriers. Only 3? I take it all back. Dark is doing terrible. Oh, man. I mean, I guess the disruptor count down to 10, or down by 10, rather, is an important amount. But yeah, that's where those Viper Pulls kind of came into play. Imagine if 2 or 3 of those Viper Pulls would have been carriers. They would have absolutely been taken care of. Another Zealot run by here, just walked in from the 4th base of Trap. And the carrier count still is not insanely high. It's only at 4. 4 isn't the critical mass that it could be. I mean, 6 now makes it better. It's a much better situation for Trap to try and play. He's currently at 5. He's 1 away from the magic number. Lurkers now can finally help assist with the Hydras on the ground to make this aggression go a little bit smoother here for the Zerg player. But even still, and Dark's broke. He does have +3 missile, which is good. +2 carapace, which is also good. And since his opponent's not really taking the opportunity to set himself up with an additional air weapons upgrade, I mean, Dark doesn't need to go into +3 carapace. He could, but I don't think that he would find the value from it when he could just invest that into a couple of lurkers as well. Disruptor shot's going to connect with a couple of those lurkers. That's where the lurkers are going to be the most vulnerable, is trying to avoid all of these disruptors, and it's a lot of very, very careful micro here by Dark to keep himself in this game. Psystorm going to be added into the mix as well as the carrier count continues to climb. We are at 7. 6 seems to be the critical mass where if you get above that point, it is mayday, mayday for the Zerg player. But that's why Dark has those Vipers in his count. He's only got 2 right now. It could be more. That's another reason why you hold off on those upgrades, at least in the short term, because that gas can be so, so valuable in some of these powerful units like the Lurkers, like those Vipers. If Infestors were to come into play, Infestors are not a bad use of gas at this point in the game. But Dark is now maxed out. He is going to have to try and find a way to capitalize on this position. Oh, a couple of those are going to end up going down. The Spore Crawler Forest is now only beginning, but it's a little bit too late. I mean, those need to be up now. Hydras are caught off to the right-hand side. This is a rough situation here, and that means it's going to be a choke for that Psystorm to start coming down here. All of these High Templars are going to be able to get massive hits onto these units. Great pull onto one of the first carriers, and that's a carrier that ends up going down. The second carrier is going to get picked off as well, but Trap gets a fair amount of damage here and softens up this largely Hydra army. But where is the Lurker count? The Lurker count's at 12, but it doesn't feel like there's 12. There's so many caught off to the right-hand side trying to protect against run-bys at this point, and Trap slowly asserting his way in. Giant disruptor hits here on the right-hand side as Trap is going to start pushing forward here. He's working his way in between the main bases of Dark. I mean, this is very, very difficult here. So few Hydras remain as a part of this army. 14 are in production, but they need to be here, and they need to be here now. Slowly, Dark starts to lose his overall setup, and Zealots are going to come charging on in. Those Hydras have to run, especially since the Lurkers have been eliminated. There's only 3 remaining, and that's not going to be near enough to shut down the Protoss player. I think Dark is on the verge of falling 0-2 to the red Protoss player. He does have some pretty decent surrounds here as those reinforcements are starting to come into play, but that means that they're not going to be able to group up and DPS the way that they need to. Interceptors in smaller numbers, though, here on the right-hand side. Is there going to be enough for Trap to stay put and deal lethal damage to his opponent? I think that might be the case. Drones are finally starting to go down here. 15 end up falling at that 4th base location. Giant Storm goes down onto the Hydras here on the low ground, and I think that the follow-up reinforcements for Trap are going to be too much for the Korean Zerg. GG is called, and Trap takes a 2-0 lead in this best of 5. Will Dark be able to secure even one win in this best of 5 series? We'll have to find out as we head on to game number 3. Game number 3 brings us to 2,000 atmospheres, where Dark is looking for any possible toehold in this series. And he's fallen now twice to the power of Skytoss. And he's had his hatchery blocked at the natural twice now. I mean, Trap's going to be annoying with the probe, but this probe's just extra annoying because it's already done one annoying thing and has to start working out the means of additional annoyment. So the question will end up being, where does Trap want to go here in game number 3? Very clearly, the Protoss player has done a very good job of maintaining the pace and the flow of the game. I'm a musician. I love talking about tempo because it's so important. Players that can control the speed of the game and move at the speed that they want to play, those are the players that typically do very well, and those are the ones that will come out the victor in individual series. So Trap has done an outstanding job of that, and usually Dark is the player that does that. That's Dark's MO. So will he be able to find the means to own the flow of the game here in game number 3? We're going to have to see, but it is another Stargate opener here for Trap. So that means Trap's going to have to replay at least one of his strategies that he did in game 1 and 2. Game 1, he decided to stay into a air-only composition into the late game. Game 2 gave us the spicy adept timing that really didn't work out so much, and Trap was just like, yeah, you're right. Air toss, definitely better. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Trap stay on Stargate tech here in game number 3, but we will have to see where that takes us. Dark already working out his queen count. Trying to get his life sorted. I mean, overall, Dark, I believe, has a pretty strong win rate against Protoss players. I mean, he's got a 63% win rate overall. I mean, there's a reason that Trap is one of the best Protoss players in Korea, let alone maybe the world. So statistics don't mean a whole lot when you are talking about some of the best players in StarCraft 2. But Dark not necessarily flexing the same kind of muscle that he typically shows in his series. So I know he's going to be looking to do that here in game number 3. Now, this is a very quick third Nexus. This is the kind of Nexus timing that you get when you don't anticipate your opponent pushing across the map. And Dark right now droning very heavily behind it. Did he get vision of this? He didn't. So he saw the units, he at least saw the adepts. That might give him enough of an indicator, but I mean, unless he decides to really switch on the aggression, I don't know that it's going to mean a whole lot. It's going to get into lair, continuing to drone up. We do see the second Stargate going down back behind this, so +1. Yeah, Trap's going to go right back into his game 1 strategy. He's going to have those voids. More than likely going to see that really early fleet beacon, and we could be just right back into some good old PvZ with Skytoss. So now the responsibility lies with our Korean Zerg. I have a Roach Roaring going down at the 5-minute mark. A Queen Walk could be really strong in this particular series. 2000 Atmospheres doesn't have a whole lot of crazy hills and bumps to navigate. I mean, this is about the biggest barrier here in the center, but I mean, this can even easily get taken down. And now suddenly, oh, surprise, I'm at your third base. Oh, but this makes it even easier. Now, a Nidus Network went down in game number 1, and I felt like Dark was never able to capitalize on it. He just didn't have the vision that he needed to be successful. But wouldn't it be nice if you didn't even have to worry about the barriers here? Oh, he's gonna get vision of it. That should give him vision. That gives him vision. Unbelievable. Amazing. Okay. Well, now this is very complicating here. I mean, Trap's just going to be able to respond to this accordingly. He's already got a Twilight Council down. He has additional Void Rays in production. This is going to go remarkably well here. Queens are already going to be out, but this is part of the walk that we expected. +1 already done. Where are the Voids? What is the Void Ray count? That is going to be the tail of the tape here. But Brenda already shown up with her whole crew. The local church knitting group is here, and they are ready to give you sweaters and scarves and socks and gloves. Everything your heart could desire. Trap does have to dodge a few of these vials, though. This is a doable hold here, especially with shield battery overcharge, but that is about to finish up. So now these Void Rays do need to pivot around and make things happen, but feels like Dark is not quite sure where he wants to attack at this point. He is going to start moving over to the third base location, but that has a menagerie of shield batteries and photon cannons at it, so it feels as if this is a little bit distracted. Now, despite that, there is no shield battery overcharge. It's going to be about another quarter of the way, or 2/3 of the way done in recharging. But Dark's losing a little bit of steam right here. 68 to 61. These Void Rays really still have not fallen in great numbers. In fact, not a single one has been picked off as of yet. But so many units of Dark start to fall, mostly Zerglings, but as the Queen energy starts to diminish, that means now that Queens are starting to get picked off. The Ravagers are going to start getting picked off. All of these valuable units that are absolutely pivotal to the success of this push. The Infestation Pit goes down back behind, but Trap right now easily dealing with this all in, and Brenda's just going to leave. The Nidus Worms are taking off, and Dark is going to run back home. So what ends up being the damage? It's Trap all the way here. Trap gets an amazing hold. He's going to be able to respond. Now, the upside is that Dark should be able to respond to this appropriately, but drones still have to get pulled off of the line. That means economically, this is just going to continue to get better and better here for the Protoss player. Okay, fourth base coming down. That's not going to be able to stand. That does get canceled alongside a Nidus Worm. And at this point, that should just be Dark's response, is trying to get as many of these Nidus Worms around the map as humanly possible. More than anything, to use them as giant creep tumors. So that way he can start blocking expansions. See here, I mean, even a creep tumor managed to get down. So that fourth base is going to be scouted for the foreseeable future. We do finally have Infestor upgrades, and Infestors could be a good choice here, especially with a large Ravager count, a good fungal growth chained with some Ravager Biles. Could be very, very strong here for the Zerg player. But these Void Rays are rather tough to deal with. Fleet Beacon's going to go down here. That means we're going to have Flux Fanes in just a little bit of time. It is fourth base location now finally going to start getting picked up here. Oh, that actually didn't even get off a revelation. So Oracle just getting cleaned up. Fourth base goes down at the 9 o'clock position on the map. And this is going to be a lot of Infestors. So Infestors going along with the Queens. A pretty smart choice. I mean, this is, I think, about the best that you could ask for. Pathogen glands now completed. So all of these Infestors do start with enough energy for a fungal growth right out of the cocoon. Very, very helpful. And going to be very, very necessary right now as the carrier production has begun. What are we at for Stargate count? The Stargate count is significantly lower this time around. It's only 2. And I said significantly, and it's only 1 difference from the previous game. But if you think about it in terms of statistics, it's a 33% decrease compared to previous games. Or is it a... Yeah. It's a 33% decrease. I did math on stream. That was risky. Somebody's probably still going to go down into the comments. Actually, Rushi, I have my master's degree in statistics, and your assertion was incorrect. I'm already going to like it. Like, you can post it. You can post it, and you can tell me how wrong I was and how embarrassing it is that I have a degree in music education and I can't do math on stream. I'm just going to like it. I'm just going to see liked by Rushi. Okay. Yeah, this is what we have to look for here. It's going to be these beautiful chained fungals into Ravager Biles. But this is actually proving to be a bit problematic for the Blue Zerg. Plenty of transfuse is going to keep that hatchery alive for right now, but needs to find a better way to deal with those run-bys. At his fourth base location. Fifth base coming down on the right-hand side of the map. This base still has not been taken, so Trap's still rocking a 4-base economy, but really not a major concern. And I know that the Roaches are going to be very, very useful in trying to get Ravager production and mitigating some damage, but largely, I think the time for the roaches is come and gone, but so many disruptor shots here, grabbing 3 of the Ravagers, 2 of the roaches, partridge in a pear tree. So many numbers. I mean, this is just problematic here for Dark. Dark's definitely winning the supply war right now, 196 to, I guess, 200. I've lied. Everything is all equalized at this point. But the supply count doesn't play into effect that these roaches have very, very limited ability right now to remain aggressive. Void Rays just rip through roaches. Disruptors do. Archons do. Immortals do. The Ravagers are the scary part of this army, but even still, this is a bit of a complicating situation. These are great parasitic bombs, though. Going to soften up so much of this. Trap was not looking at his Void Ray army, and that caused a whole lot of issues. Oh, that hatchery almost survives, but then at the last second, able to get cleaned up by a disruptor shot. That is not what the disruptor was intended to do, but it is still going to work regardless for the red Protoss player, as Trap now going to work out to that 5th base location. What does Dark know on this map? He hasn't quite seen that transition down to the 5th base location, but sacrificing so many of these roaches to try and get base kills is starting to prove a little fruitless. Oh, there's going to be a dead hive. So many. Great pull here on the Void Ray with parasitic bombs, but that hive didn't stand a chance. The resonating, or prismatic alignment, rather, just going to prove to be a bit too strong. Now these roaches are starting to find a little bit of value here, but not the same kind of value that Trap found in the top right-hand corner. Dark struggling to even produce right now. It feels as if he just continues to sack more and more of these units for Trap, but is still finding opportunities to make things happen. But here is now where all of the production is going to go into. It's going to be into Broodlords. 4 for sure. It's a small number. Broodlord's one of those units that you need to have just a delicate amount. You have to have the right balance. I'm not sure if 4 is the right number. Always feels like 6 to 8 is a bit more balanced. I think the bigger question is how many Corruptors are there? There are 2. I think that is maybe more concerning. It is already carrier production time. There's plenty of carriers here. Some very, very good parasitic bombs coming down here by Dark. Dark's control is almost second to none. Okay, now we are starting to get a couple more of these Broodlords. And it's just Broodlords. There are no Corruptors as a part of this. I think that could be a bit concerning. Having that dedicated anti-air, very, very important. Ravagers finding some good biles on the left-hand side, but more than anything, just trying to keep Trap on his toes at that 4th base location. I think he's actually treating it like the 5th base. This base already fully saturated. Granted, this one is fully saturated for gas as well. We are getting +3 ground weapons on the way. And now we're starting to see the ship. I don't actually know what it's called for Protoss. I'm gonna have to look here in a moment. Ship armor? Flyer armor? What's it going to be called? Air armor. That makes sense. That's going to be finishing up here. +1. Trap taking an additional Nexus down here. Trap already maxed out as well. And he has a sizable army. I mean, the parasitic bombs have been absolutely on point today. Very, very good here for Dark. Dark's going to have to engage on top of this. Trap's bringing the fight to him. All of the microbial shroud being used. I mean, this is about the best case scenario here. Some great fungals going down onto the interceptors here alongside the microbial shroud. These queens are going to be able to attack for days. This is what Dark needed. Look at the supply difference here, 194 to 157. Corrosive Bile is going to try and connect with some of these carriers, but not nearly enough. If only there would have been like a fungal or two to trap these in place. Again, no pun intended, but a much better engagement here for Dark this time around. He had all of the tools that he needed to make this work. A mothership is on the way here. I can already see the ESL spam. Minus 400, minus 400. I can already see it. But this is actually going to get very, very low here. I think this base is actually going to get picked off. Ooh, it's going to be so close. 31 health. But the actual damage happening over on this side of the map. Good transfuses onto the Corruptors. Yeah, the Corruptor count did finally get brought back into the situation. Dark is overextending just a little bit here to try and maximize the damage. But now finally, once the Corruptor counts are no longer able to 1 or 2 tap carriers, suddenly it becomes a very, very big problem for the Corruptors as the Interceptor count will just overwhelm the forces here of Dark. Oh no, the panic Swarm Host. That's the worst. Okay, additional Vipers being brought in, but Trap's not feeling any pressure back at home. Trap's able to cause so much chaos for the Korean Zerg player that it is just very difficult for him to be anywhere else on the map other than home. DT's going to be able to pick up the base here on the top side of the map. And Dark, despite having some very, very good holds here, not in a great position. Not in a great position. If we look at the income advantage, he's tried so desperately to wrestle things back from his opponent, only to have it plummet very, very fast in the opposite direction. DT once again going to try and get in here, but we'll get poked into ire. And I think with the mothership coming in, this could be a very, very strong push for Trap. Trap has so much supply right now locked into difficult to engage units, and that Corruptor count is just unfortunately low. It's 13 in total. A giant fungal does go down. That's a great way to start here for the Korean Zerg, but right now, parking over top of all of those Archons, the absolute massacre of the Corruptor army. And that's going to be too much. Dark has to tap out, and Trap manages to advance on to the semifinals of the season finals for DreamHack Fall.